there any revisions that anyone has? The agenda? So if there are no revisions, then the agenda is accepted without objection. And now I'm gonna ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We're in the corner.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, do we have any visitors that would like to speak?
Just busted online.
Okay, so we're just gonna wait a minute or so. Actually, I could probably go on to the consent agenda. Alright, so, are there any revisions requested to the consent agenda? So, that's the approval of the minutes and the media packet. Alright, then I'm gonna say the consent agenda is accepted without objection. We'll wait a minute to see if anyone jumps on for the. This meeting is always really long.
They are.
We ended up going on the staff one.
I know, that's like. Alright, so since there aren't any visitors that would like to speak, we're gonna move on to report to the board. And the first thing is a Fairfield Center School tour that Kelsey is going to, there you are. Wanna show us around?
It's gonna be fun.
You want to do that?
You want-
It'll take 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This is our library, obviously.
Oh, okay.
That room in there, that's the staff room. And this is our student support center.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Yes, of course.
Alright, just change a little bit. Alright, so our next section is the student board representative report.
Hi, I'm Jacoby. I am a sophomore at BFA. And last Wednesday, the students came to the working session, and we all think that went really good. We think it was good to get an idea of what the goals for you guys are and what's expected of us there too. And I think it was good to set those goals then, so that when we do adopt it today, we think it was good, and we talked about it today. And then we got a grant for $10,000. I don't know if any of you know about it. But so we got a $10,000 grant from, I don't know, it was kind of open-ended, but we had to improve school community. And so on Wednesdays we have a really long enrichment period. It's an hour and a half long of you don't really do much. And so what we're doing with starting in October,
Never say that.
I was gonna say, no, we do a lot of stuff. We get a lot of work done. We do a lot of stuff, and then so in October, starting in October, we're gonna get activities off the ground. And what we use that grant is fund the activities, fund the busing and transportation that it takes. So we go to the complex for activities, there's cooking, ways to get moving and interact yourself if you're all done with your homework. For that time.
So this is a continuation from last year.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and so this money is carried over, and so now we're just kind of working on, what else we can do to spend it, and so that's kind of where this committee drive from, and now that we're really taking it a step farther and doing these, and I think it's great. And then with athletics and sports, next week is our homecoming and spirit week. So then Friday is the homecoming game, and then Saturday is Powder Puff, where the senior girls do a flag football against MVU. We have, what else do we have? There's soccer game, a lot of stuff that happens this week and next week. The homecoming parade, lots of busy stuff happening these couple of weeks. And I think that's it.
Is there a dance?
We're doing like a fall fest dance, I think, later, a little bit after.
Thank you. Alright, so our next thing we're gonna talk about is grant funding. And John, I think you got some information for us.
I can't compete with a fall festival dance, but grants can also be exciting.
I did talk about a grant too, so.
That's true, yes.
So now he's got a grant and a dance, John.
I'm like one of
I'm
them,
not even
I'm
gonna
sorry.
try. I'm not even gonna try, we're good. Can I borrow your mic just so anyone online can hear me? Sorry. So, this is the second year we've done a report like this to the board, and we have some new people, and some of the feedback we got last year is actually that some additional context about some of the bigger grant programs would be useful or appreciated, and so I have like a 10,000 foot view of some of those programs, and I'm happy to go as deep as the board's pleasure is and take some feedback on whether or not this struck the right balance as we go through this. But these grants and federal and state programs are actually a big deal to us. They represent a sizable portion of our budget when you view them together. And they also direct significant activity within the school district because of the conditions that come with the grants. And they all have their own unique purpose or lens for looking at academics and student life. So if we were to summarize these into the biggest categories, we would be looking at the Consolidated Federal Grant Program or Consolidated Federal Programs. Those are often referred to as the title funds. And those are grants that all public schools in the state have access to in some form, but they're formula grants, and so each individual community's demographics kind of dictate the degree to which we are eligible for additional funding through these grants. So you can see this is our start of the year allocation. One of the challenging pieces about this grant is that allocation will actually change a couple times between now and the end of the year. It could go up a little bit, it could go down a little bit. Sometimes when we're in the middle of writing the grant and trying to get it approved, it will change by amounts that we have to adjust for. But generally, you'll see it be around 2.5% to 2.7% of our budget based on the history of the grant here at Maple Run. ESSER, which is the COVID Relief and Recovery funding, which has been split into 3 different subgrants, is a huge grant. So you can see that's a little more than $13 million. And just to place it in context with the other grants in our annual budget, what Martha and I did was basically divide that figure by the years the grants cover, so that you could see what, if it was annualized perfectly, what it would look like as a percentage of our budget. The reality is that in some years we've spent more or plan to spend more than in others out of that grant. And then we have a very large assortment of other grants, and some of them are regular and reoccurring, some of them are one-time or short-term kind of funding pieces, but they all have their individual purposes, and together they actually represent a large chunk of funding for the district. So Title I is a grant, the biggest of the consolidated federal grants, and this is really targeting improving our basic programs at school. There's a correlation between this allotment and the socioeconomic demographics of a school district, and so you'll see this number vary by quite a bit from school district to school district, and there's quite a few schools in Vermont that don't get Title I funding at all based on their demographics. But so we see lots of pieces here that are connected to requirements in the grants, like support for parent and family engagement with the school district, support for homeless students and other vulnerable populations in individual schools and across the district. And we have a mix of funding here for different programs, like hard materials and supplies and pieces like that, as well as staff. Title II is an exciting grant, I think. So we're looking here at effective instruction or improving instruction across the district, and so it's not surprising that this is a grant we utilize to fund professional development among some of its other purposes. And Title IV, again, is similar but different in the approach that it takes, and that's looking at academic enrichment and support for students academically across the spectrum of students that we have in our schools. And so here, sometimes we see professional development that's very targeted for the use of funds. We might also see things like this year we're using some of the funds to pay for new assessment programs that the district is rolling out. And so it's a interesting and flexible title. I know you all have access to the presentation. If you click on the links, you can read to your heart's content, and there are like thousands of pages about each of these grants that you can get lost in. And school-wide programming is an interesting aspect of the Consolidated Federal Grant Program. And so when school districts or schools reach a certain level of funding based off their demographics, they're allowed to co-mingle the funds from the title grants. So you can begin to co-mingle Title I, Title II, and Title IV grants, which are the 3 title grants we qualify for. And use those not just for those very targeted purposes or targeted populations, but use them to improve whole school systems that benefit all students. And so it's something that we benefit from actually greatly as a school, that we qualify for this additional flexibility in the use of those funds. So delving into the world of other grants, one of the larger ones is IDA-B, and this is all related to school-age special education students. We're talking about kids ages 3 through 21 really, and there's a whole range of uses of this fund, from specialized services to actual staffing for children with special ed needs. Medicaid is another one that gets talked about a lot, and it is actually a hugely beneficial but very complicated program for schools to administer. And basically what it turns, or the high-level view of this grant is as a reinvestment grant, is referred to often. So that's school districts sometimes provide services that qualify for Medicaid reimbursement. And by going through this process, those funds are turned around based on a formula for schools to reinvest into prevention programs to try and support all students.
And do you feel that all of the staff members who are eligible to provide Medicaid evidence are actually trained in doing that?
So I will own upfront that even though I am generally considered the grants person for the school district, Medicaid is not one of the grants that I oversee with a great level of detail. We have our special ed director and then a specialist.
I just know we've hired a lot of behavior specialists, we've hired a lot of other human service workers within the district. And so, like you said, it's a reinvestment grant, right?
Yep.
So the more people you have doing their time samples, the more people you have providing evidence, then the more money you get back on your return. And I would say that is oftentimes, there you are.
Martha can answer your
a
question.
A place where
Yeah.
we could do better. Not we, meaning Fairfield, whatever. Not Maple Run,
Schools.
just schools in general can do better. And they miss out on money.
Yeah, so we have a Medicaid clerk that her job is Medicaid.
Yeah.
And she goes out to the schools and she connects with all of the providers that provide those services and makes sure that they fill out all the proper paperwork. So yeah, we do have somebody that's on top of that.
Okay. All
Actually,
eligible people, because you'd be surprised, there's more people than,
Oh yeah,
it's not just special educators.
that's right.
that's right.
So is that what PT and OT?
Yep.
And that's
Yep.
Yep. And,
Social
and
workers,
social workers, behavior
specialists,
specialists.
Nurses,
Yeah, it's quite a list.
by list.
I would say we're pretty comprehensive in that.
Great. Thanks.
I just have a quick follow-up question on the Medicaid,
Go ahead,
Go
John.
for it.
if folks can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So you mentioned that we have a Medicaid clerk for the district. Do we have any sort of inkling as to like what basically what that clerk's workload is? Like, is one person or however many people we have on staff for that enough enough to cover what we need?
Yeah, I think Charlie, Martha and I are looking. This is Bill. Martha and I are kind of looking at each other, and I'd say pretty confidently that we have one FTE that works year round on Medicaid, and feel pretty confident that that person is sufficient for what we need.
Okay, so we're not burying this person in paperwork just yet.
They work as a team with the providers, as Joanna was talking about. You have to go out and work with all the providers and log everything, and it's the whole system. And the state of Vermont provides it's one of the areas that they provide very systematic support to the Medicaid, to the schools for how this is done, and that the training is there so people know how to do it. It's probably one of the best running programs out of AOE, I would say, and the way it teams with the field.
Super, thank you.
So one question we get asked often is how did the grants flow through the system? And so this is generally the flow of funds coming from a federal level filtering through the state. Some funds start at the state level and then through the school district and through the central office over to the individual schools. Not every school is eligible for funds from every grant. Some are actually targeted to just one school, so NCTC is a great example. The Perkins funds can only be spent at NCTC. But generally speaking, this would be the flow of the funds through the district. And we wanted to provide a snapshot of some of the really concrete things we're getting out of participating in these programs. And so if we go back to the beginning when I was talking about the consolidated federal programs or those titled grants, I always think about these as the research and development grants. Like, these are the grants, the intent behind these is that we should be improving our systems and applying the best research and evidence-based practices that we can get to the school district or across the school district. The reality is that while we do use these funds for that purpose, just like every other school in Vermont, there's a history of when we've had budgetary troubles or challenges of protecting key positions or student services through title funds, which is not an ideal use of the funds because generally our costs for staff increase faster than the reimbursements from the grants do. So it's a losing game over time. The grant can't keep up with salary and healthcare costs. But then there's also a formula for things like the pension and other costs associated with staff that we actually have to pay at a higher rate when we pay for staff out of the consolidated federal grants. So these are some of the pieces that we pay for, or that we've been able to benefit from, and then we have quite a good number of staff that are still charged to the grant across the district. ESSER, which is again that COVID relief funds, has been has had a huge impact on the system, and so you can see that programmatically. We've been able to do things like expand pre-K access here in East Fairfield, also to run extensive summer programming for quite a few summers, and also invest significantly in the curriculum program and professional development across all of our schools. And on top of that, we've had quite a few staff members that have been paid for out of this grant as well. As well as new programs like the Lighthouse program that's funded entirely out of the ESSER grants to get started. It's worth noting, can't remember if I said this at the start, so I'm sorry if I didn't, we're heading into our last year with ESSER funds. So that's also something, and I'll talk a little bit about the work we've been doing to prepare for that transition as well.
Heading into meaning 24-25.
So actually, September 24 is the sunset date for
So ends
reimbursements.
December 24th?
September of 2024.
Right. It ends September 24th.
Yes.
So this is the last year.
Yeah, so there's some unique rules about what you can pay for and when you have to incur the cost versus when you can use certain programs like technology or subscriptions is a interesting one. So long as we pay for it by September 24, we can sign a 10-year contract and that starts on September of 2024, and as long as it's paid for by, or the PO is issued by September 2024, it's there. But staff, we won't be able to fund out of the ESSER grants after September 2024.
It's not the same type of grants we've seen in the past that we're used to in school systems. It's got a lot of unique rules.
Oh, yeah, sure.
When we think about that other assortment of grants, there's quite a bit of staffing that is allocated to these grants. And actually, a lot of them complement each other. So some of these positions are actually paid for through commingling or combining funds from many different grants, where some people have just part of their position supported through some of these grants. You can see a little bit of a sampling here. So as we talk about these transitions that are coming up, there's two big ones. So we were reaching a tipping point where we were going to start incurring more salary expenses that we had been charging to the consolidated federal programs than the grants would be able to reimburse. We knew that was coming last year. At the same time, we were trying to avoid having critical services that were paid for out of the COVID relief funds fall off a fiscal cliff when that grant ran out. So last year we began the process through our normal budget process of auditing what was working well and making decisions about what positions and or programs could we move to either different grants or local funds. And so we saw it might not look like a lot to say 3.5 positions or 4 positions, but that's actually a sizable shift in funds out of those grants. And then we also saw some non-FTE related costs like pre-K expansion in East Fairfield, and then some of the expanded transportation and busing costs we've been paying moved out of those grants and into local funds or other grant programs. What that leaves us with for transition planning is really talking about summer programming. That's been a key focus of the use of the ESSER funds. And so we've had programming in each school, extensive programming in each school over the summer. We've also partnered with the Black Creek Adventure Camp here in Fairfield and with the St. Albans Recreation Department, and had hundreds of Mabel-run families be supported in their access to those programs over the past couple summers. And we're not saying that summer programming won't continue, just that the nature of it will have to change and adapt once these funds are exhausted. The good news is we actually have a really rich history and tradition in all of our schools here of supporting summer programming through various means. And so we'll have to begin planning now about how we return to those or other methods of supporting that program. And then we still have some positions, the building sub positions that we've been utilizing to keep school open and cover for people engaged in some of these other critical recovery efforts that we've been doing. Won't be funded by the grant after the school year. And then we have a few other positions in the professional staff categories, teaching categories that haven't been, or that their funding is at risk after ESSER runs out. And so that is the crash course in our current status on the grants and the grant funded programs at Maple Run. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and then also take some feedback about the level of detail provided if you're looking for more or less going forward.
So you said that you were doing like an auditing process to figure out what would be the positions that you would potentially not be able to renew with ESSER funds. So that's how you came about the three teaching positions and the building subs and then summer programming. Is that what you're? I'm not sure I understand.
I would flip it. You're right, but I would just flip it. What we started with was identifying these critical pieces that we really need to keep running school. And so what we saw was a lot of things related to mental health, their social emotional well-being of children, and trying to figure out how we could move those positions or resources into local funds or stable grant funds. And there were some shifts around academic intervention too, to preserve access to those students as we're trying to catch kids up from the learning loss from the pandemic. And so really it was a focus on what we had to kind of protect at all costs, and then now we're left with some pieces we haven't figured out the answers to yet.
And
Thank you.
just to refresh everyone's memory, that meant, if you remember last year at budget time for the board members that were here, that's basically what that slide is. Remember how we talked, we came back and said, if we can get $1.2 million expansion of the budget, we can cover these things.
Yeah.
And that's what you did
Okay, great.
as
Thank
a
you.
board. And so that's really, not everything is on that slide, but like 85-90% of it's
Yeah.
right there. So.
I would say a better picture than I expected, to be honest.
Well, John's leadership with us has really helped us avoid a fiscal cliff. We have many colleagues who are in a much worse situation. You've said that to me, and I hear that from my superintendent colleagues. There would be a lot of reductions in force coming because of ESSER. And we didn't want to do that. It's not fair to our staff or to our school system.
I'm cut off with Aaron took my mic.
I think this is good. I think, like, as I've gone through this, like, a lot of this should be added to the new board orientation. You know, that we take each piece of this just so people would have an understanding.
Susan, can I just say that from the conversations you and I have had in planning and trying to think out long term for the board and trying to think about agendas, this is really the first step in the overall budgeting process for the board as we enter for FY25. And so there's a lot of things that are coming, and when I say we, Susan and I had this discussion yesterday, but we haven't been able to program everything out because we've talked about last year about weighted students, and Brianne and I are going to a workshop in the beginning of October. There's changes in Act 173, which changed the funding and how that comes. So I think we're gonna have to spend more time than we usually do, not necessarily making decisions, but educating us all and understanding how this new system's gonna work, because it's gonna be a whole new piece. And that's probably why Martha's over there nodding, saying, "Yep, this is my last year."
You couldn't have left last year.
So.
And are there people actively working on more grants in terms of, you know, summer programming and potentially these other positions?
Yes, and there's some state programs that are slowly trickling out to support the maintenance of key programs. There's just not a lot of details yet, and so There's also an effort to expand the 21st Century Grant Program, which currently only City School
Right.
applies for or qualifies for, but could potentially benefit other schools in the district. And so, yeah, we're watching all that, and I'll say regionally the curriculum directors are sharing as much information as we come across about different grant programs that are out there.
Any other questions? Thank you, John.
Thank you.
So we are going to move on to old business. And the first item is we're going to table, basically. It's the St. Albans Town representative appointment. We haven't finished that discussion yet, so we're going to have to table that for right now.
Yeah, you had said we'll probably move that
Yeah.
to the end of the meeting.
So, item 7B, the administration recommends a motion to adopt the Vermont School Board Association operating protocols that we talked about in the last meeting. So I'd like to make that motion that we do adopt the recommended operating protocols. I'm wondering if there's someone that would second me.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, I think we're ready to take a vote then. So Joanna,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Susan's a yes, Suzanne,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
who am I missing? Is Matilda online? No.
No.
All right, so that item passes by a vote of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 0. Am I missing someone?
You got it because Carly's not here tonight.
That's right. Okay. And the next item is to adopt the VSBA governance self-standards evaluation. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept the Vermont School Board Association governance self-standards evaluation that we talked about last week. Wondering if there's anyone that would second that.
We'll say.
Thank you, Amanda. Any discussion about that? Any discussion? All right, I think we're ready to take a vote then. I'm gonna start on this end, Susie.
Yes.
Okay. Charlie?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Me, yes. Amanda?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
And Joanna?
Yes.
All right, so that also passes by a vote of 6 to 0. And the next item that we need to discuss is, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the district goals as presented. Anyone second that?
I will.
Thank you, Susie. Discussion about that? So these are the district goals that we talked about last week, or 2 weeks ago.
Not for a while.
Yeah, quite a long time. All right, then I'd like to take a vote. Charlie?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
Susan? Yes. Amanda?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
All right, so that also passes by a vote of 6 to 0.
May I add something?
Yes.
You will see very shortly, in the next day or two, an announcement of strategic planning that will be around these goals. And I would invite board members to take part at least either at the we're gonna have some half-day forums, or if you want to be part of the design, there's gonna be leadership team members, students. Jacoby's heard enough from me, the leadership team has heard enough from me about saying we need you on this, but our goal is to have community representation and help build it and to bring you a plan in by April, for the board to approve most likely it'll be a 5-year, and definitely 3 years will be enough once we identify all the work, planned is for the guide and sunsetting our envisioning plan. Just wanna let everyone know about that, and it'll be out in email. I had hoped to be able to announce some things tonight, but we're still working out some fine details of dates.
Okay. Next item is adopting board goals. Again, we talked about this 2 weeks ago.
So I would like to make a motion to adopt the board goals as presented. Would anyone second that?
Second.
Alright. Discussion.
So the only thing that I saw on here was on the third one, when we were, if you're looking at the action steps or the objectives, basically. So creating a communications, public relations district position, informing staff, students, caregivers, different access points, students and staff, website, blog, newspaper, social media, front porch forum. But one of the things that isn't on here is just ways that the school board is going to create, like whether it be town meeting days or coffee shop talks, whatever it is. But that was just something that we talked about doing and having, discussion sessions and working sessions with the community. So I would just like to add that to it.
You had emailed me earlier,
I did,
Joanne.
and
I
you
said,
said bring it up.
I said, bring it up because I knew I was going to forget it. And
That's
I didn't
okay.
have time to edit the document. But I was
Not
wondering
worry.
if we called it school board community listening sessions, if that works.
Sure. Sounds
Okay.
great to me.
And we just add that bullet at the bottom.
And do we need to make an amendment to?
I think you can deal with as Robert's rules for small boards, you can make a friendly amendment.
Alright, so I'd like to make a friendly amendment that we add a bullet point under action steps for the third goal statement that adds in that we're gonna do school board community listening discussions.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Just since we just went over the whole idea of sunsetting certain funds and everything, have we identified as far as creating that position, have we identified where that salary comes from?
Yes, I did, Charlie. When I brought that to you in July, we had a position that hadn't been filled at the central office, and we were able to combine some monies, so we used that. So that's already funded in the local budget. But great question.
Sounds good.
Alrighty, I'd like to take a vote.
Sorry, I'm so happy I can't even stand it.
Joanna, you get to go first.
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Susan is a yes. Jack?
Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Alright, so that 2 passes by, that was a four items, by a vote of 6 to 0.
A lot of work.
I know. Years.
Years. Thank you.
You had said, I'm taking your words for you, but
Yeah.
somewhat of a
I'm
reminder.
missing my notes from.
That's okay. That we're probably going to need a work session soon for these goals to kind of for the board to make your own work plan,
Yeah.
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 and we'll figure that out.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes
That's
I
all
keep looking for them.
Well, we're here working as a team. We're working as a team, Susan.
Alright,
so
so-
we're good.
So, on to new business. Board meeting format and attendance.
So one of the things that I have been struggling is probably too hard a word, but trying to figure out, that's probably a better way to put it, is from the leadership team who attends. And at the last meeting we had all the principals, and then tonight knowing we had so many executive sessions, we had such a time we were going to be in executive session, it didn't make sense. I said to them yesterday at our leadership team, except for Kelsey, sorry Kelsey, but you're the host. That don't come tonight because it's going to be a quick board meeting. The board's going to be in and out of executive session, and I don't need us to solve it tonight, but I wanted to identify it with you as a board that I want there to be contact with the administrative team. Also, they put in. I'm just going to use you, Kelsey, but Kelsey was probably here at 7 this morning or 7:30, depending on when she got her kids at home or got them back here in the morning, and then she's here till late tonight. And I know most of the buildings have open houses tonight or they have sports games they need to go to and all that. So I'm sensitive to our administrative colleagues and the amount of work. Nilda said to me when I became superintendent, Bill, that's your decision about when folks come, but I also think that there's good informal interactions that happen, and that's a good thing. So, like I said, I'm not trying to get into a big discussion tonight to try to solve it, and I would actually like to have it had some think time and percolate with all of us. And Susan and I have been kind of talking about that, like what's the right attendance. I've been talking with the leadership team about that. There's been some new brainstorms that even happened today that one of our colleagues said. just about how do we do that. And part of tonight and the tour was just because we have many new board members, is just to see the buildings. Because sometimes just seeing what that looks like gives you an idea of what the school's like, and every school has its uniqueness. I think I'll end it there and just say that's what. And I'm asking for help from all of you.
Yeah, so even people can email, give Bill that feedback.
Or give me a call or find him chat. You know,
Alrighty. Our next item is an unpaid leave request. So, the administration recommends a motion to approve the unpaid leave request from Lauren Mangus as presented. So, would someone make that motion? I'll make that motion. If someone would second it?
I'll second it.
Okay. And is there any discussion about that unpaid leave request that the administration recommends we accept? Alrighty. Then we're ready to vote. Charlie,
Yes.
Susie,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Susan is a yes, Amanda,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Alright, so, that motion went through, 6 votes to 0. Next, and this is also an action item. So this regards the, VISBIT and the VHI, conferences coming up. And the motion is to appoint an authorized rep to attend and cast MRUSD's vote or proxy certificate of authority, to have the board vote on, MRUSD's behalf. And I'm wondering, so, will someone, yeah, we can read all that, but,
Can I just give a little background, maybe?
Yeah.
Because there's folks here that may not know about this. So, VISBIT and VHI are owned by the members, and it's all school districts. So VISBIT is an insurance trust that does all our workman's comp, and Martha, tell me where I go awry here if I forget it. But does our workman's comp liability coverage for the school district. And so all but I think 2 or 3 school districts in the state are in it. VHI is the healthcare side of that provides healthcare and dental to all employees. And so Maple Run School District is a member of that and has a vote. They have their annual meetings at the Fall School Board and Superintendent's Conference that happens every year. This year it's happening the last Thursday, and it's happening on Friday morning, the last Friday morning in October. The conference is on Thursday and Friday, which we'll talk more about in a bit. But you usually appoint, if a board member's going, a board member gets appointed. If not, I know I've sat in times for my board because I'm always at that conference.
so I guess we're looking, or I'm wondering if anyone would like to go to that conference and be the, I knew you would do it too.
Thank you,
So I'd like to make a motion to appoint Jack as our authorized representative to attend and cast MRUSD's vote. So, is there anyone that would second that? Okay, thank you, Amanda. Is there any discussion? And can we vote on that?
Thank you, Jack.
All right, so Charlie. We're
Yes.
all right. Susie,
Yes.
Jack.
I think I need to recuse myself.
Susan is a yes. Amanda.
Yes.
Jess.
Yes.
Joanna.
Yes.
All right, so that passes. So Jack, thank you very much. The next action item is we'd like to appoint an authorized representative to attend and cast MRUSD's vote for the VHI on behalf of the MRSUD. I'd like to recommend a motion to appoint Jack as the MRUSD representative to appear and vote on behalf at any and all meetings of the members of the Vermont Educational Health Initiative. So would someone second that for me?
Second.
Thank you, Amanda. Any discussion? All right then, I'd like to vote on that one as well. So Charlie,
Yes.
Jack? Joe. Susie?
Yes.
Susan is a yes. Amanda?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
And Joanna?
Yes.
Alright, so that also passes by a vote of 5-0. Alright, we're gonna move on to other business. I'd like to make a motion to approve the warrants, acknowledging that the passage of this motion will act as authorization and signature of any individual board members participating remotely. Thank you, Amanda. So we're gonna vote on that. Charlie?
Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Susan is a yes. Amanda?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Joanna? Alright. Next item is the superintendent's report.
So I have a couple of things. I think I've talked to all of you individually, except for Joanna. I'm sorry, we just haven't had a chance to catch. But this past Sunday, I sent out a superintendent report. We talked about increasing communications. I'd like to have that discussion individually with anyone who has feedback, suggestions, improvements, thoughts. Glad to take them. Wasn't really looking to do that right here, but glad to have your feedback and really would want to make it to meet the needs of the information that you need to have. So that's what it's intended. I'm going to be doing it every 2 weeks, so I'm going to try to. It didn't make the publishing on Friday for the Friday before, but that's my goal, is to hit the Friday before the board meeting. Okay. If there's something you need to know, or you have a question, or you hear something, give me a call. You all have my cell. Use it, please. That's the way I work, and it just really kind of helps to get that flow of information both ways. The second thing I'd like to say, and I'll talk more about this in my next superintendent's report, but as you've heard several times from John and our principals about our commitment to literacy. So I've been able to start this week, and I was deliberately holding until this time, to go out and start my walkthroughs through classrooms in literacy. And I've been through, since Monday, I've been through 16 classrooms, and all but 3 of them I knew were using our Amplify program. I wasn't judging quality, I was just judging, are they using it? The other 3 doesn't mean they weren't using it, I couldn't tell. And I could use Stacy to help me, or John to help me, because I don't know all the Amplify scope and sequence. But it is one of the things I've been very public with the staff about that. And I know the principals have been to the staff. Bill's coming around. And I have all the, and John's gonna be doing it too. He had to get a grants report done, so. This week, so he's working on that. But we're actually sharing a schedule on a Google Sheet and how we keep track of all that. So it's great to see that the staff are jumping in and really taking it on and taking on the challenge of getting it done well. Saw some amazing things out there with kids, and it's just nice to see that dedication to our students and saying, I mean, no one's told me this, but I can get, I'm getting glimpses of like, hey, I'm not really sure if I'm all on it, but I'm going to give it the try and really implement it fully to see what it does. And we know one of the highest factors, John said this before, but it's a guaranteed viable curriculum. And that curriculum is aligned. It really doesn't matter so much what the curriculum is, as long as it's the best practice one that's identified in research. It's more that people are aligned across grade, within the grade level and across grade levels vertically. So that's what I'm checking for right now. So that's a brief report.
Any board announcements?
Was it the budget stuff that we talked about that I brought up early?
In terms of
That we were going to do a few more. We were going to look at the report schedule and try to look at giving some education on the budgeting process and things that are going to factor into it.
So we're going to start looking at how, you were going to start getting us information that will help us determine the budget.
Right. Yeah.
I think that was it.
I think that's why, you and I were at the chairs training last spring, and Susan you just said to me, hey, there's a lot of things that are coming in education finance right now this year. So there's a little bit more education than normal around factors that will be hitting Maple Run and all schools in Vermont and the nation. So.
And you alluded to that earlier when you were talking about the going from towards weighted students,
right?
Moving away from
equalized
to the weighted students.
Yeah, I did allude to that pretty quickly. I'm using education speak. I should
Yeah.
stop doing that. there's a new funding formula.
Yeah.
For those who haven't heard that, there's a new funding formula that goes into effect for FY25 for how we get how the dollar yield affects Maple and all school districts in the state. Is that fair to say it that way, Martha? Sure. Okay.
And I think it's gonna be important for us to have a good understanding of that, because even, like, recently I was approached by a taxpayer who was wondering what the schools had done to explode the budget, that their taxes were going up as much as they were. And I had a pretty good understanding that, you know, actually our tax rate was flat, but because of the common level of appraisal, when the common level of appraisal goes down, it means we're paying, you know, more, versus towns where the common level of appraisal might be going up, their tax rate, or they might be paying less. So, you know, I think it's important, this weighted.
She's doing well.
She's got
She's
it.
got it. She's got it.
It's been a long time coming. But you know, because I felt like I was able to articulate that to her and talk about, you know, have this understanding that our tax rates haven't gone up, but the taxes have, you know, and a lot of that's out of our control. And I think especially with this new weighted, you know, system, you know, being able to talk to that when people do come up and ask questions is a good idea. I did go back to Bill after that and you know, kind of told him my conversation, and he said I was on target, which is good. I then went back to that taxpayer and said, actually what I told you was true. You know, so anyways.
Yeah, it's in that this year particularly, this current fiscal year, we've seen such a change in CLA, especially in the city. The town wasn't that bad. Fairfield was in between. You know, Fairfield got hit, but not like the city. The city really got hit with a change.
I can't speak to the city, so I don't know.
Just the change, the amount of change, and it was all CLA when we looked at it last year too. It was all CLA, but people don't understand that, and they're gonna say, "Hey, the education tax rate."
Any other board announcements?
I don't have an announcement, just but something, as you are looking at Amplify, I'll just be really interested to hear about, your opinions on it, K through 5 or K through 4 versus 5 through 8. And, you know, hoping that we're looking at it objectively, you know, for both age groups, and really making sure that we are servicing the middle school, you know, appropriately, and that we're not just allowing the good that's happening for the K through 4 to kind of, you know, gloss over 5 through 8.
Definitely.
Thanks.
Any other board announcements? Alrighty. Agenda for future meetings.
I think we said some of the
Yeah.
budget and education. We're gonna look at some of those reporting pieces.
Alrighty, so we do need to have an executive session to discuss, I think it was 7A to appoint a town representative. So I motion to move item 7A, St. Albans Town Representative, appointment to executive session for 1 VSA 313A3, the appointment of for employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee, provided that the public body shall make the final decision to hire or appoint a public officer or employee in an open meeting. Would someone second my motion? I will. Thank you. So I'm gonna take a vote on that. Charlie?
Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Susan is a yes. Amanda?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Alrighty, so we're going back into executive session at 7:39. So we're out of executive session at 8:22, now 8:23. And I am going to make a motion to appoint David Bray to the vacant St. Albans Town Representative seat until the conclusion of the 2024 town meeting day election. And is there a second on that?
I'll second that.
Joanna. And now I'm gonna take a vote. Charlie,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Amanda.
No.
Susan is a yes. Susie?
Yes.
Alright, so by a vote of 4-1, we've appointed David Bright to the town seat until town meeting day of 2024. And since that is the, yes,
I'm sorry, I forgot, but now I remembered. I just wanna make an announcement, to our community, that anybody that still has EBT money, the EBT card that got sent to everybody, one thing that I don't know that has been, communicated well enough is that you can use that card at the farmer's market in St. Albans. And when you use the money in St. Albans, so you can use, you get a, 120 per child. So if you use $20, you go there to the market manager, she'll give you $20, but you actually get $60. So your $20 becomes $60, and you can use that all at the St. Albans Farmers Market. And that's gonna be running, I believe, until the end of October. Just in St. Albans. Now, if you had 2 kids, you can get 20 for each child. It only triples one time per visit. Okay? Am I being clear when I say that? So when you go, if you go this Saturday and you give them your card, you'll get 20, but you'll get $60. Now, let's say you wanted to go get more, then it becomes that dollar for dollar again. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So every $20 that you go per visit, it turns into $60 that you can use at the farmer's market.
Wow.
Per child, yes, per child. And so, and there's, you get 2 different types of cash. One is for fresh vegetables, fresh fruit and vegetables, and the other one is for, other perishable goods, basically. You can buy pickles, you can buy meat, there's chicken, there's beef, there's pork. So you can really get an incredible deal. And that's gonna go until, I wanna say, the end of October, maybe the beginning of November. So please be aware of that and go take advantage of it.
thank you. Alrighty. Since we're out of executive session and there's no more items, we're gonna adjourn the meeting. 8:25 p.m.
Thank you.